Trader Joe's. Welcome in to a special edition of Sport Ball. I'm your boy Sam. With me, as always, are my two good friends, Seth and Kyle. And this one, I think, is actually special, boys. This is the best pod of the year. Okay, this is what the fans are waiting for. Are you guys pumped right now? Are you torqued? This is the big NBA preview pod extravaganza palooza.
I don't think anyone's ever asked me if I'm torqued before.
All right, well, how's your chance to answer?
Yeah, I'm very excited for our WNBA game tomorrow that we're going to.
All right.
Thank you, Kyle. Now everyone's sufficiently pumped.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Seth.
I think he did mean to interrupt you. I mean, he played music from his phone while you're talking.
There was a lull for a second there, and I couldn't get to the song in time.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Sam and I are going to the game 3 of the WNBA finals tomorrow night in our very own Chicago, Illinois. So very excited to see Candace Parker take on Diana Taurasi.
It's going to be a great matchup. Brittany Griner as well. Sheesh. But we're not here to preview the
There's been
WNBA
tons of
playoffs
celebrities
already.
at all the games, too.
Mm-hmm.
That first game, like, there was a bunch of Chicago people. Chance was there, courtside. Sure, you see him in game 3.
I saw like Chris Paul and some of the Phoenix Suns players were at.
Devin Booker, yeah. As they say, game recognized game.
That's right.
That's why no one recognizes this podcast.
Good one.
I'm sitting here with my Joseph Brow from Trader Joe's. Kyle has his
Radical New Therapy, hazy double IPA. You already know.
Which he claims that Noon Whistle swindled him into getting 6 packs of 6 or whatever it was.
That's exactly what happened.
They just asked you if you wanted them, and then you said, yeah.
I tried to buy 1 pack. They told me for the cost of 2, I can have 6.
Yeah.
I thought it was a ploy. I thought they were trying to get rid of terrible beer.
Yeah, and were they?
It turns out to be my favorite one that I've ever had from there.
Wow. So
I have terrible taste. Who knows?
Yeah. Yes.
Seth has what appears to be a full bottle of wine, so we're all ready to go here.
That's correct. It's called Live a Little.
What could that mean? And just like that, he's gone. Never heard from again. What if that was the last thing he ever said?
Live a little poof.
All right. Well, Seth, I don't know where he is. We just have on our screen a frozen image of him holding up a bottle of wine. But
today, which is for me, but sent it to Home Depot and it's right by Whole Foods. Can you still hear me?
I don't know if he's still speaking or if he's talking in an alien language, but I'm just going to plow ahead and tell you that we are indeed ready. We are very ready for this NBA preview.
Never been more ready, honestly.
That's right. We all have Kyle's got a White Sox hat on, even though they just fell in the playoffs, but
someone needs to fire Tony La Russa. Get him out.
Not sure why they even hired him when he's an 80-year-old and has a DUI, but
multiple DUIs. And made some other questionable decisions in his career, but
you know what? We're not here to talk about the WNBA wine or the Sox
White Sox
in the playoffs. What we are here to talk about is the NBA, baby. Okay? And if you would believe it, it starts next week. So everyone strap in, strap on, and get ready, baby, because we're back. All right? Fans are going to be back in the stands. Things are going to be wild. Some players perhaps won't even play in their home games because they're not vaccinated. We'll get to that later. It's going to be a wild season. I'm excited. We're all excited. Let's get down to business, okay? Now, I want to tweak this up a little bit. Usually we give our playoff picks 1 through 8, right? And we go through them. I want to kind of do them in segments, okay? This is why they call me the genius of podcasters, right? Because I'm so flexible. So I'm going to give you guys my top 6 in the East, okay? And you tell me how you differ. Seth isn't ready. What's that?
Seems like a large segment.
Well, I think all these teams are in a tier, okay? I would say the first tier in the East would be the Bucks and the Nets by themselves, alone at the top. Okay. And then, so maybe let's just start there. Okay. Because I did say it was going to be segments. So I have Nets 1, Bucks 2. But given the Kyrie, so the news came out that Kyrie will not be with the team as long as he's not vaccinated, because they said you can't be a part-time player. Okay. So we have to go into the season assuming that at least for the beginning, Kyrie's not a part of this team. And you know what? I still think they're the title favorites. And, I think it's closer now without him. But I mean, if you have James and KD, you're still gonna win a ton of regular season games, and you'll be the title favorite in my book. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I agree. And their depth got a whole lot better this year, with a full season of Blake Griffin, adding Patty Mills, who's a very competent starting guard, and Paul Millsap, who, is not at his all-star form anymore, but he's not like decrepit yet.
If they play in an Applebee's, he'll be the best player on the court.
Right. Which if they played in Applebee's, Kyrie could probably play. So
great point.
Yeah, so I would still have them as a favorite. I mean, we saw last year, like, they probably should have beaten the Bucks without Harden or Kyrie. So I think you're just being contrarian if you pick anybody else to win the East. But obviously their ceiling is a lot lower without Kyrie, and their injury insurance is a lot thinner without Kyrie. So those are the two biggest things for me. And I would say there's still two avenues for Kyrie to play, right? He could get vaccinated, which let's hope that he does. Or the statewide mandates in New York and New Jersey could change because the COVID numbers decrease, right? And then they lift some of those mandates. So there's that possibility as well. A few months from now, I think is reasonable, if numbers continue to fall. So we'll see.
So you have the Nets and the Bucks 1 and 2 in the East as well?
Yeah.
Kyle, what about you? You're going to tell me how the Bulls are actually the 1 seed?
Against all odds, I'm not. I also have the Nets and the Bucks.
Do you agree with the sentiment that the Nets are still title favorites without Kyrie, even though, it's closer without him?
Yeah, I think he's the least important of that big three there anyways.
That's for sure true.
I think he affects the game more in terms of taking the ball out of Harden and Durant's hands too much sometimes.
I agree with that.
So they're better without him, Kyle?
I don't think they're better without him.
Okay.
Like, it might be easier to go through the regular season without the uncertainty of him, but the playoff ceiling just isn't there at all. I mean,
right.
So,
yeah.
The ceiling is not as high without him, but I think they could, with or without him, regular season wise, I think they would perform essentially the same if we ran a simulation of a full season with and a full season without.
We could be in a simulation right now, for all we know.
The world's flat.
You see they're coming out with a new Matrix movie?
Yeah.
It's not right.
I watched the trailer, Matrix Resurrections. I tell you, it made zero sense at all, but I guarantee you I'll watch it.
This is why I don't watch trailers. Yeah, I'll watch
I hate them too, but my brother sent it to me and I felt compelled.
Oh, see, I don't watch the videos you send to me. That's how I get away with that.
That's your secret.
Let's hit on the Bucks real quick, just to mention. I think there's a world where they get out of the East again. I think there's a very real world where they finish with a 1 seed again, just because maybe KD and Harden do some load management, and the Bucks are just like Giannis doesn't really sit, and he just.
What world is that? Mars?
No, Earth in a different timeline.
Oh, okay.
So I could see them finishing first too. It's really not. I mean, they're always an elite regular season team, right? And they have the confidence of the championship they've won. So
100%.
I would see one of those two at 1. All right, my next tier. And this is an order that may surprise some listeners and both of you. I have the
That's
Celtics.
Not bad. Sorry. That's not bad.
So joke. I have the Celtics at 3.
You dirty boy.
I have the Hawks at 4. I have the Heat at 5, and I have the Sixers at 6.
Jesus Christ, that's exactly what I have.
Wow.
I did not expect that.
Okay, Kyle, why don't you give your order for that tier, and then we can discuss who's right. So this would be the not Bucks and Nets, but not in the play-in. For our listeners that might...
Are we doing... You said this is... What numbers am I going?
Okay, hang on. I'm going to explain to the listeners what goes on right now. So for the listeners that might have forgotten, there's a play-in now, right?
I know that.
And and 7 and 8 play 9 and 10. Okay. So the tier I just listed is who I believe to be escaping the play in this season. Okay. That are not the Bucks and Nets. So that would be seeds 3 through 6. That's the next tier I had. Yeah. And in that order, I went Celtics, Hawks, Heat, and Sixers.
Okay. I got it. So I had Celtics as well.
Oh, really? You have Celtics at 3 too. That's kind of surprising. I don't think
I've been saying since last year that Tatum's going to win the MVP this season. So
Celtics are going to miss the play-in. We're all way too high on them. This is disconcerting.
That's funny because consensus nationwide on real podcasts with real hosts have been not that they're third. So
yeah, so the Hawks. I'm sorry, Celtics, Sixers, Bulls, Hawks.
There it is. There's them Bulls.
So no Heat, huh? You have the Heat in the play-in?
Yeah.
All right, so let me give my reasoning for this order, and we can talk from there. Let me start on the Celtics first. And Seth, I'll give you room to wax poetic. But what I see on this team is a team that's depth is greatly improved from last season. I think my biggest problem with them last year was that you had to roll out the likes of Semi Ojeleye and a washed up Jeff Teague, right? And you just didn't have enough good NBA players. Now we're looking at Josh Richardson, Dennis Schroeder, Juancho, Hernangomez, who I know we all sneaky like.
Fucking boy.
If you're a real basketball fan, you sneakily like Juancho. And, I think Nesmith and Pritchard will contribute as well. And last year they kind of had to contribute too much, but this year they're right in that role they should be. So that's what I think of your Celtics, Seth. You tell me if you agree with that assessment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we talked about this on the various podcasts last year where I felt like the Celtics starting lineup was fine, but you'd look up and suddenly it's like, okay, we have Grant Williams, Jeff Teague, and Semi Ojeleye all on the court at the same time. What the fuck are we supposed to be doing here? So I think we're going to have, like you said, significantly fewer lineups like that because we have increased depth. I'll be curious to see exactly how we end up starting and finishing. I think it's going to be like Schroeder, Smart, Brown, Tatum, Time Lord will probably be how they start. Potentially how they finish.
I thought they're going to start Horford instead of Schroeder. Have you some insider info though?
No. I was going off of the ESPN depth chart, but I could also definitely see them starting Horford. And then maybe they finish with Schroeder. I mean, I'm sure they'll try out different things throughout the year. But in any case, I agree with the depth. I think another big thing is, as much as I hate to say this, getting rid of Kemba, where he just, even in the games when he scored 20 points, he was inefficient, he was turnover prone, and he was a sieve on defense. And I love the guy. Big improvement in the locker room over Kyrie. He just beloved by everyone, but at this stage of his career with his knees, like that was just the reality last year. And but because of his pedigree, like he took the ball away from our other players a lot. So I think it'll actually be an improvement to have Schroeder in there, especially coming off the bench, and another year of Tatum and Brown blossoming. And then I think obviously the other big change is at the coaching position. We all love Brad Stevens, but I think just got to a point where they were tired of hearing his voice over and over. Everyone seems to respect Ime Udoka, former player. I'm really excited to see how that changes things, and how the players seem to respond to him, and if we can increase our toughness and grit and things like that, because I think there are a lot of times this year where we kind of last year where we just kind of rolled over. So
for sure,
I had them third as well. I'm really excited about this team, just like I am at the beginning of every season. That's why we love the preseason pod so much, because anything is possible.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't think Kyle is correct that Tatum will win MVP, but I would like nothing more than to be wrong about that. So,
Kyle, I know you have the Celtics third, and I know you want to talk about Tatum, but also talk to me about our boy Time Lord, who I feel is a critical part to this team this season. Because one of the reasons I thought about not putting them third is I'm not so sure on the Al Horford Time Lord fit at the 4 and 5. I know they're very good playmakers, but what does Al have left really? And the other thing is Time Lord has had a litany of injuries, and can he stay on the court for a full season? Because if he can't, you're gonna have to play some Cantor, which you know.
You say that as if it's a bad thing. We got Enos back, baby.
Enos the penis, baby. So I think he's a critical player for the Celtics this year. What say you on that?
I mean, as we know, I've been clamoring for Time Lord for over a year now at this point. But I think, to your point, with the injuries that we have seen him undergo and their added depth this year, I think during the regular season, he doesn't need to play, like 28 or whatever minutes, which he'll probably play in the playoffs, 28 plus. I think they're going to take it a little easy, especially early on. We'll probably average like 24 minutes or so or less for the first couple months of the season, I would imagine, especially with, like you said, like Hernan Gomez, easy fill in there. Enos is going to soak up minutes. Like, they have a lot of front court depth that they haven't been able to rely on in the last year or two. Which really,
I mean, I'd much rather have Enos in there, like, jokes aside, than Grant Williams.
Yeah.
Tristan Thompson. Yeah.
Yeah, Tristan.
Yeah.
Tristan is just a worse Enos.
Do you realize the Kings have Tristan Thompson now? Yeah. Like, why?
Why do they do anything they do?
Like 5 centers, and they have Marvin Bagley, who they drafted over Luka Doncic. Mm-hmm. Anyway, then we'll get to them later. Well, we won't in my playoff picture, I'll tell you that much. But so the next team I want to hit is the Sixers, because Kyle, you had them at 4. Seth and I had them at 6. I think, at least speaking for myself, factoring in Simmons probably not playing at the beginning of the year and then trying to find a trade for him. This is very similar to the Harden Rockets situation last year, when we're like, we don't know what's going to happen when we're trying to do our preview pod. Although obviously the Sixers have more in place to sustain greatness without Simmons, right? Because they have Joel Embiid, who we all consider to be a top 10 player in the league. So I put them at 6 as a hedge for Simmons misses the first 20 games while they try to find a trade. Embiid, tries to lift the team up by himself, but misses a few games, and they stay right around that area. And then who knows what they get in a trade back for Simmons, right? If we're talking a star, they could be right near the top of the East again, right? But if it's just Joel Embiid in pieces, he tends to miss 20 or so games every regular season, right? And this team is nothing without him. So, Kyle, why did you have them at 4? And is it factoring in a Simmons trade?
The Simmons trade is a part of it, but also I feel like we've talked about it a lot over the last few years. The fact that Joel and Ben don't necessarily work that well together. So the fact that we're probably going to get a season where it's just one of the two, and we've always kind of thought they could be a better team if it was just one of the two, makes me think that they're really not going to have that drastic of a fall off. I'm also really high on Tyrese Maxey, who now should see a ton more minutes, whether he starts or comes off the bench. They have the scoring, and I think they saw a lot, out of some other the younger players like basketball Paul, aka Paul Reed. No one knows who that is probably, but he was extremely serviceable as a rookie last year in the limited minutes he played. They just got, I think, enough around Embiid to let Embiid be the superstar, but also do what they're supposed to do in terms of what we've seen over the last few years of them being a top team in the East. Plus, like you said, there's going to be a Ben Simmons trade most likely, and it's not like they're going to get worthless players back.
Right. I think I pretty much agree with everything you said, but I just am kind of factoring in an Embiid injury. He misses a few games, and then things really go south if they do end up trading Simmons. We should give our listeners a little background on Simmons because he last year in the playoffs, as we know, did not show up, especially in fourth quarters, famously passed up an open dunk, was lambasted by Doc Rivers and Joel Embiid publicly as much as you can really for honestly. A teammate. And then over the summer said he wanted to be traded, didn't want to come back to the team at all, sat out training camp, said he was going to sit out the season, ended up showing up this week without anyone knowing, just showing up to the door. Nobody knew. And he just like, yep, I'm here for my COVID test. and then
power move, honestly.
Yeah. So he since met with the team, briefly. I don't know if he's there just to stop getting fined or if he's actually planning on playing this season. Nobody really knows what's going on. And I think it's interesting to me, this whole situation, because he has 4 years left on his deal, right? And he wants out. And everyone's acting like this is a similar situation to Anthony Davis and James Harden. And like, is this the next step for player empowerment? It's like the team wants to trade him. They almost traded him from Harden last year. They were going to trade him in the offseason anyway. People are acting like he's forcing his way out like Harden and Anthony Davis, which I mean, he is, but it's like, obviously the Rockets wanted to keep Harden. The Pelicans desperately wanted to keep Anthony Davis. The Sixers like, yeah, we're going to trade you anyway. Just show up, please, and we'll find a trade. Like I feel like people are acting like Simmons is pushing his way out, and he's just like, it's terrible that he's acting out with 4 years left when it's going to be a mutual parting of ways, in my opinion, right, Seth?
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think it's definitely mutual. I think people are focusing on the 4 years left because he wouldn't even show up to camp. And he's saying things are so bad that I'm not going there. I'm not even going to listen to that, And I think even though it is mutual, it still is some kind of precedent. Can you hear the ice cream truck going by?
Yeah.
Nice.
I was wondering what that was.
Yeah. So I'll be right back. I'm going to grab some. No. I think it still sets some kind of precedent where, like we've kind of been saying, free agency is not much of a thing for the big stars anymore because they're just like, we'll just sign the max contract that you can sign. And then at any point, you can just ask out if you're not happy there. And so I think even though it's going to be mutual, the people will still point to this as an example of, well, Ben Simmons asked out when he had 4 years left.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess like in a perfect world, Simmons should show up, be a good soldier, play, and wait for them to make a trade. But I understand being like after the offseason, like, okay, well, you're trading me this season. I don't really feel like playing for you when I already know I have a foot out the door because of you, not because of me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I understand that side of it too. There's no winners in this situation, I guess, but I can see both sides of it, But hopefully they find a trade. I don't really know what the trade is at this moment because they want a superstar. Dame doesn't seem to be leaving anytime soon. Beal doesn't seem to be leaving anytime soon. What's out there, you know?
You're gonna have to settle for draft picks, first round draft picks, and honestly, that's not a bad position to be in.
Yeah, that wouldn't be. That's kind of another thing that I baked into the 6th seed. I mean, if they're getting things for more of the future, then they can still be a playoff team this year. But Simmons definitely raises their floor the regular season. All right, that's enough Simmons talk. Okay, let's go to the next couple teams that we all had. I had the Hawks 4. Seth, you did as well, correct?
Yeah.
Kyle, you had them shortly thereafter, I assume.
I had the Sixers 4 and the Hawks 6.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's talk about the Hawks a little bit. I think the Hawks versus Heat thing is kind of interesting because they're in the same division. The Heat are projected for a higher win total. I think it should be flipped. I think the Hawks are going to be really good this season. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to be Eastern Conference Finals again good, but I'm also not saying that was a fluke. You know, I mean, they're going to get back a healthy Bogdan Bogdanovic, Cam Reddish, DeAndre Hunter. This is a fucking deep team. They're really deep when you just look at their roster. They still have Lou Williams. They added Gorgie Jang. They have DeLon Wright as a backup too. So I expect this team to be really, really good. And I would not be surprised if they're the 3rd seed or even the 2nd seed if one of those teams gets an injury.
Yeah. I think we're on the same page there. I think a lot has been said on other podcasts and such about the confidence that the Bucks will have after winning the championship. I think you could say the same about the Hawks after making it to the Eastern Conference Finals, and especially the way that they did it with Trae Young just giving a giant fuck you to Madison Square Garden and embracing that villain role. And really they could say, hey, we only lost to the Bucks because Trae got injured, you know? So
that's a fair point.
Yeah. So I think it's totally realistic for them to be better in the regular season than they were last year, and then potentially not quite make it as far in the playoffs. But, you know, a lot of that's due to luck anyways. But
for sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty bullish on them. And I think signing John Collins when it looked like if you asked me a year ago, I would have said, well, he's just going to play out the year and then go sign for a big contract elsewhere. But I think retaining him and then all the depth that you spoke to is going to be big for them.
Speaking of villains, how badass was it that John Collins dunked on Joel Embiid and then printed out a shirt of him dunking on Embiid and wore it after their Game 7 win?
That's pretty dope.
So Kyle, you're pretty high.
John Collins.
That's right. So Kyle, you're pretty high on them too. You expect them to miss the play and at least be in that top tier of the 6 teams in the East.
Yeah. So honestly, like my 4, 5, and 6, I could see going anyway, but I think those are the 4, 5, and 6 seeds, obviously. So like I agree with everything you guys are saying. My Sixers pick, like I said, was kind of just a bet on everything we've been saying for years, how the Sixers would be better with one or the other superstar instead of both. That's all.
Yeah. I have the Heat at 5. Seth, you do as well. Kyle, you have them in the play-in. I'm interested to hear what you have to say about them. I kind of thought about putting them in the play-in, but I think they're just going to so desperately try to avoid it so that I think they'll barely get out of it. But I do expect them to kind of be a better postseason team than a regular season team with their older stars. Jimmy and Kyle have a lot of miles on them. And they don't have a lot of depth. So I feel like in the regular season, if they get some minor injuries, you know, that could lead to some losses. But I think they're going to be a force in the playoffs. Is that kind of what you feel, Kyle? If they get in there, they're going to cause some trouble?
Yeah. So, like you said, the depth is really what I question with them. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of their starting 5, but, you know, I don't know really, you know, Tyler Hero the other day saying he should be talked about in the same sentence essentially as like what was it, Luka, and
he said Luka, Trae, and Ja. I just feel like I should be mentioned with them as on that level of young players.
Oh my God.
You get one rap song about you, and you think you're all that.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, he was essentially nothing for them last year. I guess you would expect that he would rebound to his rookie production again, but other than that, I'm not like super high on anyone else coming off their bench. So it's like, sure.
Can I read you the depth chart right now?
Sure.
It's really, really bad. Okay. KZ, Akpala,
of course,
Markieff Morris, Dwayne Dedman, Gabe Vincent, Max Strauss. You like that?
Hey, Max Strauss is frisky.
I'm not gonna lie, I like that as a starting lineup in a summer league.
But anyway, continue your point, Kyle. I just wanted to point that out for the listeners how bad it really is.
No, I mean that's essentially my point. Is like, they have the veterans, and the experience come playoff time to do something and make some noise when those players are forced to play essentially almost 40 minutes a game. Jimmy's probably going 46 almost every game in the playoffs. But in the regular season, they're not going to push Kyle Lowry. They're not going to push Jimmy that hard. So it's like, yes, they're going to make the playoffs. I just don't know. I'm not as confident of them being a top 6 seed.
Seth, let me ask you this on that same point. You see these guys in the playoffs, a lineup of Lowry, PJ, Jimmy, Bam defensively, just locking everyone down for 40 minutes. Do you think they have, despite maybe finishing lower in the regular season, the third best chance to come out of the East?
No, I don't think they have the third best chance to come out of the East.
Is that their odds?
Probably.
Oh,
probably. Well, who do you think it is?
Why do you? I mean, for me, I would say the Celtics. I had them ranked third. I mean, obviously, there's some difference between regular season and postseason odds, but
see, I think it's the Heat.
Well, the Heat they have the 4th best odds to make it out of the Eastern Conference.
Who's the third?
Sixers.
Oh, okay.
It goes Nets, Bucks, Sixers, Heat, Hawks, Celtics, Bulls.
Yeah, I would say, depending on the Simmons trade, I would prefer the Heat.
I think the Heat versus the Bulls is an interesting comparison because both teams have a new big 3, if you will, medium-sized 3.
Well, the Bulls got a big 3, baby.
And particularly 2 of those 3 on both teams are veteran players, right? You've got Vooch and DeMar on the Bulls, and then a younger star player with Zach LaVine. And then on the Heat, you've got Lowry and Jimmy as the veterans and Bam as the younger star player. And not to mention, you've got Lowry on one side, DeMar on the other, longtime teammates for Toronto. So, and then I don't think the Bulls have a lot of depth pieces that I'm really intrigued about either. So I think considering, Kyle had the Bulls at 5th, we had the Heat at 5th, it's an interesting comparison there. But I just think I like the Heat big 3 more than the Bulls big 3.
So the Heat are 9-1 to win the Eastern Conference. So excuse me while I wager on that real quick. That's I love those odds, baby.
You like the odds of Heat 9-1 to win the Eastern Conference?
Yeah. I think they should be 3rd on this list. And they're 4th. So give them a little boost there. I guess it depends on what happens with the Sixers, right?
I don't understand how you like those odds so much, and the Celtics are sitting there at 18-1 to win the Eastern Conference. And you
don't act like I won't wager on both. Don't act like that. Those are both good odds. All this talk really goes to show one of the big themes of this season, I think, will be that the East is better than the West now, especially given the injuries to Kawhi Leonard and Jamal Murray out West, which will keep them out all or most of the season. The East is very deep with good teams. All the teams we've listed so far are really just really solid, good teams. And now the bottom of the East is still really bad. But there's going to be a couple decent teams out of the playoffs this year, even out of the play-in in the East. Let's continue down the list. Let's talk about the Bulls in earnest. So I had them next at 7. Kyle, you had them a little higher at 5. Seth, where did you have the Bulls listed?
15, I think. No, I had them at 9.
Okay. Well, let's give our next tier, and then we'll talk about the Bulls. So in my play-in, and who I expect to make the playoffs in those top 2 seeds are the Bulls at 7 and the Knicks at 8. And then I have the Pacers and Hornets 9 and 10. We'll talk more about that later. But let's start at the Bulls. So we have a nice little difference of opinion here, I think, with 5, 7, and 9 being our 3 seeds for them. Listen, Ball, Levine, DeRozan, Patrick Williams, Vucevic. Sorry, Levine.
Is that like Fred Hoiberg?
Yeah. Excuse me while I have a stroke. Ball, Levine, DeRozan, Patrick Williams, and Vucevic, to me, should be enough to be in the playoffs. It's tough, though, in the East, like I said, with how good these teams are now. And also, Patrick Williams had an injury this offseason, which worries me a bit, especially given our lack of forward depth. And suffice it to say, defense could be a major problem on this team, with Lonzo Ball being the only plus defender out of those I listed if Patrick Williams is out.
He's supposed to play in tomorrow's preseason game.
Okay, so he's looking like he's on the track to start the season.
I don't know if he'll start the first game, but he'll be back, I think, earlier than what we expected.
Never mind, Bulls 1 seed then. There is a certain lack of depth on this team that does make me worried, with Caruso and Derek Jones Jr. and who else is coming off our bench, right? We don't have a great bench. But I do think it's an offensive league now. We have a chance to be very good in offense, and our defense is probably going to be pretty poor. And I think that's enough for a play-in seed. Kyle, you're a little higher. What do you see as the upside for this team?
I loved what I saw from Levine last year, right? Been one of the biggest Lonzo fans since he came into the league, personally. I wasn't super excited about the DeRozan signing, but in the terms of having a player, a veteran that has playoff experience and a decent amount of playoff experience, I think it will help with the rest of the young guys on our team. Patrick Williams looked good last year, and in the preseason, he didn't play in the preseason. In Summer League, he was lighting it up. Obviously, that's much lesser talent, but he looked incredible. And then obviously, we got Vooch. So I'm a big fan of our starting 5. And unlike you, I kind of I like those types of depth players usually that have no names to the normal NBA fans that don't follow every day.
He likes shitty players on his bench.
No names.
Let's be honest here, okay? Alex Caruso is going to win 6th man of the year. I mean, I don't even think it's up for debate.
I feel like 6th man of the year always goes to like a 20-point scorer, though. And he's just going to play really good defense. And
sure, but how many 6th men or players off the bench are going to average almost double-digit assists?
How many 6-man players don't even look like they should be a basketball player because they're white and balding? Huh?
Mm-hmm. Which just is a little more goes to show what he could do.
I'm smelling a bet here. Kyle, you take Alex Caruso. I take the field.
I would be in on that.
Yeah, let me look up what the odds are for Alex Caruso 6th man of the year, and I'll take those odds against you instead of.
You just looked them up, and you said it was 49-1.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I win that bet, you guys each owe me $49. If you win, I owe you $1.
All right, I'll take it.
Free $1.
Yeah.
I can't wait to be $98 richer at the end of the year. I'm looking at their depth chart now, and I'm realizing Alize Johnson's pretty low down there. I was really excited about that signing. He killed it for the Pacers last year as a stand-in, and I think he's going to end up providing a lot more depth than what you think we have in the front court. So I don't know. I like this collection of no household name players coming off of the bench for the Bulls, because
it's not just no household name. They're not good players.
That's what a Stogie boy is. And this is a collection of Stogie boys if I've ever damn seen one.
Listen, I agree with you that Caruso is going to be great for this team. Other than that, there's not much on the bench. It just worries me because every year, we're going to have a few injuries. So I just worry that could lead to a few more losses than we're looking for. Seth, you can have maybe like 1 minute to shit on our team. That's all we'll allow you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think no one would give a shit about Alex Caruso if he hadn't played for the Lakers with LeBron. And
he would have been starting somewhere if that wasn't the case.
I mean, depending on what team, yeah, he could have been starting.
He would definitely still be Lakers, so NBA nerds would still love him because of the way he looks and the way he plays.
And his statistics back it up. I guess that's besides the point.
I mean, I think he's a decent defender and like he distributes the ball fine, but yeah, I mean, and a lot of it is just I'm a hater and I like to root against the Bulls and I need to see it before I believe it. So I like Boots though.
That was quite enough. After I put your Celtics third, disgraceful. Some of us are unbiased on this podcast. Not me, not Kyle, not you. Our producer, who won't be named. Why don't you guys give me your 7, 8, 9, and 10 as I tease mine being the Bulls, Knicks, Pacers, and Hornets.
So I have the same 4 teams, just different order. So I have Knicks, Pacers, Bulls, Hornets.
Okay. Kyle, any surprises from you in that tier?
Yes. Heat, Knicks, Raptors, Hornets.
Okay, so no Pacers for you. I thought about putting the Raptors in, so maybe you can give me your rationale, but Siakam seems like he's going to be out for a while. They said like a medium part of the season. Not really sure what that means. Maybe like 30 games, I guess. So I'm a little concerned about that, but it does feel wrong to leave off a Nick Nurse coach team with that collection of just good NBA players, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, Dragic's no slouch. This gives Fred VanVleet, who we all know, I'm one of the biggest Fred VanVleet fans and have Fred VanVleet flans.
That's what a tongue twister.
For the longest time, since he had baby mania and went off in the playoffs how many years ago. But again, it's just another collection of players that I'm super high on, like Boucher. I've been high on Anunoby for a long time, and honestly, with Siakam out, I think we could really see Anunoby take a much more lead role on this team without Siakam and Kyle Lowry now out of the picture too. So, you know, I like Malachi Flynn off the bench, Precious off the bench as well. I just think they're a good basketball team, and for the bottom of the East, I don't think you need to be anything better than that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they sneak into play-in. We've been going for a while, but Seth, why don't you just give us a thought on one of those teams in your play-in?
Yeah, I think I like the Pacers a bit more than either of you. I think a big problem for them last year was depth, or really injuries, right? Not having the depth to sustain a good record with the injuries. And so I think they'll, you can never really predict injuries. For as far as I know, they are fully healthy right now. And then another thing is, like, Coach Nate Bjorkgren did not seem to do a good job last year, and everyone seemed to hate him. And now they're bringing back our old friend Rick Carlisle, and I think that's worth a significant number of wins on its own.
I think Carlisle's overrated. So,
well, of course you think that. He's just one of those coaches like Pete Carroll who like consistently wins. School. So why would you like him?
Pete Carroll's a piece of shit.
And yeah, I think the core of Miles Turner, the odometer, Sabonis, who we all love, Brogdon, who I think we all like, and then the scoring punch of Karis LeVert if he can get back on track this year. And then, other pieces with TJ Warren and
also don't forget my guy coming off the bench out of Oregon, Chris Duarte.
Naturally. So I don't know. I think they've got a lot of talent. I think they've got arguably more talent than some of those other teams in this tier, like the Knicks. And I think they have an improvement at the coaching position, and Rick Carlisle will be able to make the most out of what they have. So
real quick, Knicks, speaking of, a little bit of a fluke with a 4 seed perhaps last year, but Tibbs will have this team over 500, and then they'll all have knee injuries after this year. And then the Hornets, LaMelo Leap, adding Oubre and Mason Plumlee for some depth. To the moon, baby. Let's go. All right. Let's switch. They
should really rename themselves to the New York Knees, right?
All right. That's a great call. Let's switch over to the West. And I will start with the top tier of teams who I consider a 3-team tier, and you may tell me otherwise. This isn't necessarily who I think will come out of the West, but just how I see the regular season going. I have the Jazz at 1, the Lakers at 2, and the Suns at 3. Now, is that your exact order, Seth?
Yeah.
Now, the Jazz are going to do what they always do. They're going to win a lot of regular season games, and I'm not going to give a shit because they're just going to lose in the playoffs like they always do. So I'm glad, I'm excited for another year of it. Kyle informed me that he would not be picking the Jazz as the number 1 seed. In fact, he said he was going to wager on the Nuggets to win the division. And when I said, you might lose that one, don't you think the Jazz will win a bunch of regular season games? He said, Gobert is a bitch. So I think that's pretty logical reasoning. Kyle?
Yes, exactly.
Will they make the playoffs, Kyle? Play in for the Jazz, maybe?
No, I do have them in my top 3, but I wouldn't include them in the tier 1 like we did for the East. I think there's.
I know it's weird. It's like I know they're going to be good in the regular season, but I don't take them seriously as a finals contender.
I don't take them seriously at all with Gobert on their team.
Who's your top tier, Kyle?
I have the Nuggets and the Suns, and then the Jazz.
Interesting. So you think the Lakers will not have a great regular season record?
Correct. I don't think they need to. Right.
Yeah, I could see that happening, but I was kind of thinking. So obviously the Lakers back acquisition this summer, for those listeners who might not have caught up, as they acquired Russell Westbrook. And I think he's just a big floor raiser in the regular season. You know how last year they lost AD and LeBron and they plummeted to the 7th seed? That's not going to happen this year because you have Westbrook, right? He's just an innings leader in the regular season, a floor raiser. So I think they'll be good enough to stay in that top tier. But, you're right. We should be factoring in some minor injuries for LeBron and AD at this point in their careers, right?
Yeah, and I just think those other teams collectively may be better.
Could be. Seth, what do you think about the Lakers this year?
I mostly agree with your assessment.
I hate him.
Yeah, that being said, fuck them. I have them second behind Utah in the regular season.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to be good.
I think the really interesting thing for the Lakers, if we can all agree on that, is the playoff performance that we're going to see from them and how Russell Westbrook looks next to LeBron when it really matters, when the games really matter and it's crunch time, right? Because we haven't seen Russ excel in an off-ball role in some years, right?
True, but we've also never seen a star player, look bad next to LeBron.
Has LeBron played next to a star player, though, that's been as ball dominant as Westbrook?
I mean, he was like the most ball dominant player in history with OKC, so it would be impossible. Exactly, yeah. But yeah, so it's one of those, like, it's really an unprecedented situation. So which track record do you look at? Yeah,
and it's not like Westbrook playing off ball. It's not like he's a good jump shooter or anything by any means. So
no.
Right. We talked about before how it's interesting to kind of mirror that with how Harden has fared with different superstars. Like, he made it work with Chris Paul because Chris Paul is an elite shooter. he's working great with KD, taking more of a point guard role, right? But what's to be done with Westbrook? When him and Westbrook teamed up, they were very unsuccessful, and they didn't have the same success as he had with other stars. So if anyone can make it work, it's LeBron, right? And LeBron, AD, and Russell Westbrook all excel in working in tight confines, but I just don't think it's ideal offensively. So we'll see what happens. Let's talk Suns real quick. Probably not going to be favored to make the finals again, but regular season wise, at least, we can maybe expect a little mini improvement from their young guys in Booker, Aiden, and Bridges. And I think they're just going to be a really, really solid team again, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think all their players are on the incline other than Chris Paul, but I believe he's got at least another year in him at an elite level. So I see them getting a little bit better. And yeah, I mean, they were the 2 seed last year.
So this next year in the West gets a little hairy. And it's a big reason why I said that the East is better than the West, because this next tier could go a lot of ways. And here's the order I have them in. I have 5 teams in this tier. I have Nuggets at 4, Warriors at 5, Mavs at 6, Blazers at 7, and Clippers at 8. So all those I expect to make the playoffs, but a couple of those teams are going to have to be in the play-in, and that's always dangerous. Kyle, I know you had the Nuggets in the top tier, but how do you order your 4 through 8? So you have Lakers at 4, right?
I actually had the Clippers at 4.
Wow, interesting.
But hold on, I didn't look into this nearly enough. Kawhi's out this full season, right?
Yeah.
I would expect that, yeah.
Okay, never mind then. Let me readjust this. Someone else go.
Right.
I completely forgot about that Kawhi situation until you guys made that reaction.
Perfect. So I have Denver at 4. I'm not as high on them as Kyle. I mean, never have been. And I think a lot of people are kind of penciling in Michael Porter Jr. to just take a leap this year and kind of fill in for the hole that Jamal Murray's leaving because of his injury.
Here's what I will say, though.
I don't have a lot of faith in that.
Now, we both have them at 4. And I think that might be higher than some people have them. So I think we're still pretty high on them. Kyle has them at 1, which I don't agree with. But, the difference between the Nuggets and the Clippers with their injuries, right, is that Kawhi is probably going to be out the whole season because it was later. Jamal might come back during the spring, okay? And also, Jokic is way better than...
I mean, what was it, like 2 weeks difference?
Well, it's also Kawhi, right? I mean, he's going to take his time coming back from this injury. And also, Jokic is way better than Paul George, right? So he can carry his team to a much better record by himself. And also, Michael Porter Jr. is already better than any number 2 on the Clippers.
Yeah. Why are you comparing these 2 teams?
Because I think a lot of people are wondering how they'll perform with those players out. It's a very similar situation where one of their superstars is out. So I'm just making that point. I've seen a lot of people high in the Clippers and elsewhere, and I think they will be falling into the play-in.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you and I are on the same page. It didn't even occur to me that anyone might pick the Clippers over Denver. But my biggest surprise in this section, I guess, is I have Portland at 5. And a couple of things go into that. You had a little bit of drama with Dame in the offseason. I think that'll make everyone extra motivated to really make it work and make a push this year. CJ McCollum started this season gangbusters last year, was his most efficient year, his highest scoring year, best shooting from 3. And then he got injured and then wasn't quite the same when he came back. So I think having him at full health will be a big boost for them this year. And then I think they were another one of those teams that really suffered from a lack of depth and also really poor defensive play. And so with some of the changes that they've made in the offseason, basically getting rid of certain players like Melo, and acquiring Larry Nance Jr. for added depth at the big position, a more competent defender. They also got Cody Zeller. And with Nurkic being more healthy, hopefully this season, you never know, but at least fully healthy at the time being. I really like their starting lineup. Like Dame, CJ, Norman Powell, who they acquired halfway through last year. So integrating him into the team more. Kyle's favorite, Rocco, and then Nurkic, and then having Anthony Simons, Larry Nance Jr., Cody Zeller coming off the bench, I think is an upgrade. And then just like the Celtics, another team that made a coaching change, a longtime coach that everyone seemed to respect, but maybe just time for a different voice in the locker room. So we'll see what Chauncey can do. And I really like this team, and I think they're going to go deep into the playoffs as well.
I think that's what's underrated about what happened last year, or hasn't brought up enough, is the CJ injury, right? I mean, he was looking like an all-star, and they lost him. And then they got Powell midway, and they got Nance in the offseason. So it's really like they added 3 players back almost from what they had last year, right? And I do expect them to be – I had them at 7, but I would be surprised if they avoid the play-in, right? Okay, so that's your 4 and 5. Kyle, do you have your 4 and 5 ready now?
Yeah. Lakers and Golden State.
Okay, good. I wanted to talk about Golden State. I have them at 5 as well. Seth, I assume they're coming up shortly for you.
Yeah, I have them at 7.
So very interesting year for the Warriors. Perhaps one of the most interesting teams we're going to see this year, because Klay Thompson, who it does not need to be said is a beloved on this podcast by all of us, perhaps the only one who could join a pickup game for any of our teams, our Stogie Boy and and elsewhere. And so he's supposed to come back in December, maybe January. And will we expect him to look 100%? Who knows? I don't think anyone's ever torn an Achilles and then torn an ACL during their comeback from it. So it's going to be.
Wasn't it the opposite, actually?
Oh, yeah, it might have been the opposite. You're right. So, I mean, it's going to be tough for him to look like his former All-Star self, and it might not happen this season or ever again. I mean, fingers crossed it does, but this team is still really good even without him, right? I mean, Steph and Draymond had a ridiculous plus-minus last year. Steph, Draymond, and Looney, when they gave up trying to play Wiseman, had a ridiculous plus-minus. Poole and Curry together, Jordan Poole and Curry, were plus 18. And we expect Poole to take that starting role from Klay. So I think this is still a really good team. And I think Steph Curry alone is going to lead you to avoid the play-in this year, as long as you don't make the mistake they did last year of trying to start the young guys. I think they're all in on the playoffs this year instead. And I expect them to be a good regular season team and make some noise in the playoffs. What do you think, Kyle?
Agree with everything you said. We were talking before we started recording, didn't realize Jordan Poole's most improved player odds were so Spoilers. High. Yeah. But obviously, he's shown us last year he has the ability to score. I think he does well kind of playing that off-ball role while Steph is obviously manning the point. He's the type of spot-up shooter that can get extremely hot. Nowhere near the consistency of Klay Thompson, but I think he does a good job filling that role until Klay comes back. And then, we got Oubre off the team now, right?
Yep, he's on the Hornets now.
Exactly. So do I need to say any more? He had one of the worst plus minuses of any player that's ever played with Steph Curry in Steph's career. It might honestly have been the worst.
I feel like that's almost on the Warriors too, because I'm not saying Oubre is a great player, but it's he's good. You couldn't really fit him into your system. I don't know. We'll see how he plays. I think he'll play much better in the Hornets. You know what I'm saying though? It's wow, he can't fit in our system. We can't even play him. He's a good player.
Right. That's what we thought as well.
I feel like another reason why I'm sometimes
not as high as Steve Kerr as a coach as I think a lot of people are. I don't think he made the right adjustments at times, and I think does that too frequently, but it's a story for another day.
Is Steve Kerr the Matt Nagy of the NBA?
Honestly.
Fuck out. How many Super Bowls does Matt Nagy have again?
Don't even. I can't even.
Same number as Steve Kerr. I would say the system thing is like the Warriors play very read and react, and Kelly Oubre couldn't make the right reads.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't have a high enough basketball IQ.
It's like he was too jaded by staring into his own eyes somehow.
Oh, God, the most beautiful eyes in the league.
Guaranteed. As we're talking about this, you both convinced me. I swapped 2 teams and moved Golden State up to 6.
You're damn right you did. Okay, so I've been through my 4 or 5. It's Nuggets, Warriors. Let's go to our 6 and 7. I have Mavs and Blazers. Does anyone have the Mavs this high?
I have the Mavs at 7 as well.
I have the Mavs at 7.
I think that's a fair spot for them. A lot of people are putting up in the top 4, and I just don't get it really. I mean, I get it because they have Luka Doncic, but like, I'm not sure why everyone is so high on them versus, like, say, the Warriors, when the Warriors have Draymond and the Mavs' second best player is
I mean, the Warriors have Draymond and the Mavs have Luka Doncic.
No, I was talking about their after.
The way you said that, that's what it made it sound like.
That's hilarious. Hey, you heard it here first. Draymond, top 5 player. All the Mavs have behind Luka is what I'm saying. Is Kristaps Porzingis, who is ass.
100%.
Atrocious. And then they also have the worst coach in the league. So I'm not really sure how we're supposed to feel about this. This man left the Bucks and they immediately got 60 wins after he left. And now they're going from Rick Carlisle to him. Like, I just don't see it. I don't know. I mean, Luka's going to get like 45 to 50 wins, right? But I don't see them.
I'm with you. I almost didn't put Dallas 7. I almost put Portland 7, but
I know I wanted to punish them, but they have Luka, so
Yeah, I agree. I think best case scenario for them is Kristaps looks really good for the first 2 months, and they're able to trade him for something else good. Highly unlikely that happens, but the sooner they get out of the KP business, the better, I think, for them.
Definitely.
Yeah, so then I have the Clippers at 8. You guys can tell me where you have them. Do you guys have the Clippers in the play-in as well?
Who did you have 6?
So I have, if we go 6 through 8, I have Mavs 6, Blazers 7, Clippers 8.
Okay.
We probably all have the same top 8, I would imagine.
I don't think it seems like that.
All right, why don't you guys give me your 6 through 8 then?
I had Memphis 6, Dallas 8, Memphis 6, Dallas 7, Portland 8.
Interesting. Memphis 6. Tell me why you're so high on them.
Jonathan Morant.
Honestly, exactly why. I mean, we saw the playoff run that the Hawks had on the other side. And I feel like Memphis kind of had a similar, what felt like it wasn't a deep run by any means, but we saw Ja Morant really show up in the playoffs and really, boost everyone else around him like we've thought that he could, and he really just took over games. I'm just high on Memphis as a whole. Essentially, they have what they got? They got Steven Adams now, right? So he is going to do the typical Steven Adams thing, and I think that helps Morant have the ball in his hands more, because Jovel, as great as he was or is, I think took the ball maybe out of Ja's hands more than he needed to. So I think this really helps Memphis run everything through Morant instead of kind of having to balance that Jovel, game.
Seth, what about you? What do you have at 6 through 8? Any surprises?
Well, 6, as I just mentioned, I have Golden State. 7, I have Dallas. And 8, I have Memphis. So after Sam proclaimed that he assumes we all have the top 8, neither of us have the Clippers. So how dare you? Yeah, I like Memphis. Young team, improving. I like what Kyle said. I think it does kind of have a similar vibe to the Hawks. couple years earlier. But yeah, I just think, they made the playoffs last year. They have a little bit more momentum, and I just don't really see the Clippers doing anything. They have Paul George and a bunch of mediocre players.
It's really funny.
They're just trending downward. So
it's funny that I thought it was going to be the lowest of the Clippers at 8, and I'm the highest, when the odds for the conference, they're the 4th best odds to win the conference.
I don't understand that at all, but I saw that when I was looking through.
Like, what the fuck? I guess they're assuming Kawhi comes back to the playoffs, but I think no way he does. Like, I don't know. Way. It's Kawhi with an injury. Like, you don't think he's going to sit out the whole year? So
wasn't there even rumors of him possibly leaving last year? So
who knows with him? Like, he's a Kyrie Irving light. Yeah, the thing is, Paul George isn't flanked by prime George Hill, David West, and Roy Hibbert anymore, right? He's flanked by prime Reggie Jackson.
Is Reggie in his prime?
Yeah, I mean, it would seem so, but I don't know. A little late prime. So, yeah, it's not going to happen. I think the 10th seed is very interesting because the West is kind of ass, dude, at the bottom. Now that I think about it, like, it was hard for me to pick a 10th seed. Yeah. I went a little out of there, so I want to see what you guys say first. Maybe you can talk me out of it.
I have the Pelicans.
I'm with the Pelicans.
Get the fuck out. I'm done with the Pelicans, okay? I'm declaring it right now. Every year we're like, the Pelicans should make the play-in. They have Zion Williamson. They should make the playoffs. Guess what? They don't. They don't, okay? They're ass.
You said every year we say they should make the play-in, and last year was the first year we ever had the play-in.
I'm just saying, Zion's rookie season, they're like, watch out for the Pelicans. Last year, they're like, oh, they're definitely going to make the play-in. And then this year, everyone's like, yeah, I mean, watch out for the Pelicans. They have the worst general manager in the league. They fired their coach because he was ass. Zion got foot surgery and no one even knew about it. And he's not even going to start the season.
You think he's the worst general manager in the league?
So far, yeah, Jesus.
So this just leaves you to taking the Spurs as that spot.
I went with the Timberwolves.
Oh my God.
The Timberwolves, baby. It's a little out there, okay? And I thought you guys would talk me out of it, but you picked the Pelicans. You can't talk me out of it. Listen, there's something brewing over there in Minnesota, okay? We can smell it from here. They got Edwards. They got Russell in the backcourt. They got McDaniels, my boy, Jaden McDaniels. Cat should be the best player out of anyone vying for the 10th seed. He should be. We'll see if he is. I mean, Zion maybe, but Zion never plays anyway, so.
Well,
Zion plays 40 games a year. At least maybe I'll get Cat for the whole season. And
he's not as good as Shea, but are they vying for that seed?
They're not trying to, that's for sure.
They're not trying to, but honestly, I think they might end up doing it. I thought about putting them there.
I just want, okay, Cat had all those tragedies last year, and kind of everyone forgot about him, right? But he's a force when he's healthy and playing, and I just want to see that from him this year. So give me the T-Wolves at 10. I mean, whatever. They're going to lose in the play-in. I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs, even though it feels
the team has been so defunct for years. I don't think they've done anything to change that.
Hey, Chris Finch. He's out there. He's coaching. He's holding the clipboard.
Okay.
I guess.
I mean, I would like nothing more than to see the Timberwolves get a little frisky, but and I'm a noted Pelicans doubter as well. So I did not pick them to make the playoffs last year, and I'm not picking them this year, but they can make the 10 seed. But yeah, what are we arguing about? Like,
right. Yeah, we're not arguing about anything because I'm moving to the next topic. MVP of the entire league. Who will it be? Let me give you the top odds on DraftKings. Sponsor us, please. Luka plus 380, KD 6-1, Embiid 7-1, Giannis 9-1, Steph 9-1, Dame 14-1, Jokic reigning MVP at 15-1. The disrespect we're hearing. LeBron 15-1.
Harden made it all the way up to 30-1 during the season last year. So
yeah, Harden and Trey 20-1. There's a bunch of 25-1, including Kawhi. Who are these bookmakers? What are they doing? I don't understand. Is there something we don't know? Is he actually going to play next week? Maybe Vegas knows. And then there's a tier of 30-1, including Tatum, Kyle's boy. So I'll start. I don't understand why Luka's the favorite again. Dude, is he expected to be a top 3 seed? Like, what are we doing here? I know he's a great player, but he's not going to win MVP. I think
you're picking Draymond, I assume.
Well, Draymond's my MVP. I would either go KD or Giannis because I think they're the most guaranteed to get a top seed, and KD's been due for some time now. Maybe the narrative starts, who hasn't won an MVP since OKC. And then Giannis, now we can finally hand him his 3rd MVP since he won a title. We can all feel good about that. So I think one of those two is a good choice, those odds. Kyle, why don't you just tell me why Tatum's going to win MVP?
Yeah. I mean, Tatum's my pick. As we all know, we've known since last year, since I've been saying it. We've just seen so much growth out of him. And I think finally, as we mentioned when we talked about them, Kemba getting out of there, additional depth for their team. I really think this, helps them push and get that 3rd seed. Who the hell knows? I think it's going to be a crazy season. We could see them push for the 2nd seed. We can't write off the fact that they might even be a 1 seed.
It hasn't happened yet. Who's to say?
And if that happens, someone on that team has to win MVP, I would imagine. And it's going to be Tatum, the alpha on the team.
I think both Tatum and Mitchell are good bets for that reason, Kyle. They could easily be top seeds in their team in the 31.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I think that's the only scenario when Tatum could win MVP is if they get the 1 seed. Because the Celtics have a worse record than the Bucks or the Nets.
But if Tatum,
what would Tatum have to average to have better numbers, just raw numbers than Giannis? He'd have to be like 34, 12, and 6,
and it's going to happen this season.
Like, I don't know. Again, I hope I'm wrong. I hope you're right. I just don't see it. I'm more on the same page as Sam. I pick Giannis for this. I think the narrative changed where he won a championship, so he's eligible again. And I think, honestly, I think he should have been probably second to Jokic in MVP voting last year. And I think you could argue he had better stats than Jokic, or as good stats, and was way better defensively than Jokic. So I think you could make the argument he should have been MVP last year, but they never would have happened because of his playoff performance previous to that. So now with the championship, I could definitely see that again.
I like picking someone from the Nets or the Bucks just because I know those are going to be the 2 elite teams, and in the West, I'm not as sure who's going to finish one. So
yeah,
that's where I would go.
But all right, I could see Jokic repeating as well.
15-1, not a bad bet.
Yeah.
Let's talk about most improved player really quick. What a shitty award, huh? What a stupid award. Like, how are you supposed to know how am I supposed to know who is going to be the most improved player when I don't even know the parameters of the award? That's why the favorites for this award are 10-1 because the books don't know either, even though they know Kawhi's returning next week. They don't know about most improved player. I think, like we mentioned earlier, Poole at 15-1 is a great bet. Because what I love about him? His shorts are so high.
Why does that make you love him?
Because I like that return to 90s, 80s, back to that style throwback. He asked for smaller shorts, I think, so he can have that. So he's got a mustache. I really like what's going on there. I think Darius Garland's good bet at 22-1. Steph said he's the next upcoming point guard, and I trust Steph on matters such as that.
Long live Sexland.
Kyle, your boy OG is 25-1. Does that entice you?
Does that entice me?
What kind of fucking question is that?
Especially if Siakam's missing time. Hell yeah, it entices me. And one less ball handler, like I already mentioned, with fat ass out of there. Kyle Lowry.
They still have a really fat ass there with Fred VanVleet, though. Just one fat after another.
That's true.
OG's been like playing around with some sidestep threes, some off the dribble shots.
I think he might be like the most underrated player in the league, if we're being honest.
Whoa. What about Elise Johnson?
Alize?
Yeah.
He's so underrated, we don't know how to pronounce his name.
He's so not a household name, I don't even know his name. All right, so was that who you'd pick, Kyle, or would you go with someone else?
Yeah, I mean, give me OG.
I think that's a solid.
I mean, bet. I think it's interesting that Shea is like for the last how many years he's been like, top 3-4 odds to be most improved. But
is the improvement just like how is he going to improve from last year? He's just they're not going to shut him down for the end of the season.
Yeah, honestly,
like that's the improvement. All right, what about you, Seth?
Well, Kyle picked a Celtic for MVP, so I have to take a Celtics for MIP. Give me Time Lord, baby.
Let me see if he's even on this list.
Yeah, he might not be.
All he needs to do is stay healthy.
65-1.
Wow.
All he needs to do stay healthy. He leads the league in blocks. Gets like 12, 13 rebounds a game. Plays great defense. I think all of that's realistic for him. I think it would be a challenge, like because he's not going to score 20 a game, to get the votes for this that he should. But who knows if he becomes the missing piece that Boston needed, a Tyson Chandler for the title-winning Mavs role, if you will. I think he deserves it.
Is Terrence Mann gonna be starting for the Clippers, or no?
I don't know. I don't think so. At least not at the beginning. But I wonder if he will be eventually.
I like him at 40-1 odds too.
Any interest in Kyle Anderson at 150-1? Why is he even on this list?
Get slow-mo the fuck out of here. He's been in the league how long? He's balding like you're balding.
I know. I don't understand what goes on here, dude. Cameron Payne 13-1. I don't know what their reasoning is. All right.
For the record, the Clippers have on ESPN it lists Eric Bledsoe as the starter, and
I forgot they even had Eric Bledsoe,
which is atrocious. So.
I bet Eric Bledsoe starts for a while, and they're like, "Fuck this," and they put that in there. This is what the listeners have been waiting for: our finals predictions. Oof, boy. Last year, I don't even remember what we predicted, but I'm sure none of us predicted Suns Bucks, so I'm going to say it was wrong.
Correct.
Seth, why don't you start off and tell us why it's Sixers Clippers for the fourth straight year?
Nah, I went frisky this time. So I'm going safe bet in one conference and long shot in the other conference.
Just tell us already. You're teasing me.
Well, I'll tell you the teams that it's not going to be. All right. So it's not going to be the Minnesota. It's not going to. No. I'm going Brooklyn.
Okay.
Brooklyn defeating Portland.
Wow. Dame finally makes the finals, he says.
All it took was Carmelo getting out of there, huh?
I mean, it's not a bad bet to make that Carmelo getting out of there leads them to the finals. I like that. That would be very exciting.
Wouldn't it?
All right. Yeah, I would watch that. Kyle, give it to me.
Give me the Nuggets and the Nets. I wanted it last year. I can almost taste it. This is the year.
Could anything have been more predictable than Kyle saying Nuggets Nets in that moment?
I can't think of anything.
Jamal might be out, but watch out for my guy Bones Highland. He's gonna be an important piece of that Nuggets team this year. And I'm not shitting you either.
I have heard of Bones Highland, but I swear Kyle's gonna start just making up names. It's just gonna be like, guys, I gotta tell you, early look at James Q. Willoughby. He's gonna be incredible this year, and we're just gonna be like, okay.
All right. Well, it's gonna be no surprise what I pick either. That's gonna be Lakers Nets. I picked it last year, didn't happen. I'll pick it again this year, much like Chiefs Rams. I'm always a year too early. And I'll
pending my NFL Super Bowl picks, but that's for another pod, I guess.
What is he talking about right now? All right. Well, I have to pee like a racehorse at Pete, so we got to end this podcast. That was our big NBA preview Palooza extravaganza. I know everyone's feeling full and satisfied and happy, and I'm looking forward to a great season, boys.
Me too.